The year was 2157, and humanity had finally reached beyond their solar system. The United Earth Defense Fleet had just finished building their greatest achievement, the UES Dauntless. This massive ship represented the best technology humans had created. Its sleek hull gleamed under the distant sun as it prepared for its first journey beyond the familiar stars of home. Captain John Mason stood on the bridge, his experienced eyes scanning the displays around him. He had fought in the Mars conflicts years ago, but this mission would test him in new ways. His weathered face showed both excitement and caution as he gave orders to his crew. "All systems check complete, Captain," said Lieutenant Amanda Foster from her station. Her fingers moved quickly across the control panel, confirming that every part of the massive vessel was functioning properly. "Very good, Lieutenant. Prepare for departure," Mason replied, his voice calm but filled with purpose. This mission would make history, and everyone on board knew it. The Dauntless wasn't traveling alone. Two smaller but still impressive ships, the UES Vigilant and UES Relentless, would accompany them as escorts. Together they formed the first true interstellar exploration group from Earth. As the ships moved away from Earth's orbital shipyard, the crew felt a mixture of pride and nervousness. No human had ventured this far before. They were heading toward Proxima Centauri first, but their 5-year mission would take them to several star systems. 3 weeks into their journey, Science Officer Lisa Green noticed something unusual. On her instruments, she double-checked the readings before calling the captain's attention. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy patterns coming from the Tau Ceti system," she said, brushing a strand of brown hair from her face. "These aren't natural. They show clear signs of artificial origin." Mason moved to her station and studied the display. "Are you certain?" "Absolutely, sir. Whatever's creating these patterns, it isn't natural. It's technology, and not ours." The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood what this meant. They might have just found evidence of alien intelligence. Captain Mason didn't hesitate. "Navigation, plot a course to Tau Ceti. Communications, inform the Vigilant and Relentless of our change in plans." "Yes, sir," replied several voices at once. The 3 ships adjusted their course, their powerful engines pushing them toward what could be humanity's first contact with alien life. During the journey, the crew prepared for every possible scenario. They studied the energy signatures, developed translation algorithms, and ran combat drills, just in case. "Better to be prepared and not need it than the other way around," Chief Security Officer Greg Wilson told his teams as they practiced emergency protocols. 4 days later, the small fleet arrived at the edge of the Tau Ceti system. What they found left even the most experienced crew members speechless. 3 enormous ships hung in space near the system's 4th planet. They were unlike anything humans had designed. Where Earth ships were practical and functional, these vessels seemed almost artistic. Their hulls curved in flowing lines with intricate patterns etched into their surfaces. They glowed with strange lights that pulsed in rhythmic patterns. "Size comparison?" Mason asked, his voice steady despite the sight before them. "The largest is approximately 4 times the size of the Dauntless, sir," replied Tactical Officer Eric Daniels. "Their energy readings are off the charts. I've never seen anything like it." Before Mason could respond, Communications Officer Paul Crawford announced, "Captain, we're receiving a transmission. It's being broadcast on multiple frequencies." "Put it through," Mason ordered. A voice filled the bridge. It spoke in no language anyone recognized, but seconds later, the ship's computers processed a rough translation. "Unidentified vessels, you have entered territory of the Galactic Hegemony. Power down and prepare for inspection or face obliteration. All species must submit to proper protocols." The message repeated 3 times before falling silent. The bridge crew looked to their captain, waiting for his response. Mason stood from his chair, straightened his uniform, and nodded to Crawford. "Open a channel." "Channel open, sir." Mason cleared his throat. Then, to everyone's surprise, he laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh or a mocking one. It was the genuine laugh of someone who found something truly amusing. "With all due respect," he said when his laughter subsided, "we don't do submission. Let's try a conversation between equals instead. This is Captain John Mason of the United Earth Defense Fleet vessel Dauntless. We are explorers from Earth, and we come in peace, but we won't be ordered around. The silence that followed seemed to stretch forever. The alien ships remained motionless, giving no indication of their reaction to Mason's unexpected response. Science Officer Green whispered, "Captain, was that wise?" Mason smiled. "Probably not. But if we start our first interstellar relationship by bowing down, that sets a precedent I'm not comfortable with. Humanity has its pride." After nearly 5 minutes of silence, the alien vessels began to move. They repositioned themselves in what Tactical Officer Daniels recognized as a combat formation. "They're powering up weapon systems, Captain," Daniels reported, tension evident in his voice. "Shields up. Alert the vigilant and relentless to do the same," Mason ordered. "But hold fire unless I give the command." The largest alien ship sent another transmission. "Unknown species, your response is unprecedented and disturbing. No new civilization has ever refused initial compliance. Identify your species designation and home system immediately." Mason nodded to Crawford. "Tell them we are humans from the Sol system, and that while we're pleased to meet new civilizations, we prefer to do so as equals." As Crawford relayed the message, Chief Engineer Samantha Kelly reported from engineering, "Captain, I'm analyzing their technology. It's centuries beyond ours in some areas, particularly their power generation, but oddly, their propulsion systems seem less advanced than ours. It's like they developed along completely different technological paths." "Interesting," Mason replied. "That might explain their surprise. Maybe they're not used to meeting species with our particular capabilities." The alien vessels continued their approach. The tension on the bridge grew with each passing second. "Sir," Daniel said suddenly, "they're targeting a nearby asteroid, not us." A beam of intense energy shot from the largest alien ship. It struck a small asteroid about 10 kilometers across. The rock didn't explode or break apart. It simply vanished in a flash of light, completely vaporized. "I believe that was a demonstration, Captain," Daniel said quietly. Mason nodded. "And quite an impressive one." He thought for a moment, then smiled. "Let's show them what humans can do. Target the larger asteroid at coordinates 2:27 Mark 43. Prepare the Excalibur rail cannon." The crew moved with practiced efficiency. The experimental weapon was Earth's most powerful, capable of accelerating a projectile to a significant fraction of light speed. "Excalibur ready, sir," Daniels reported. "Fire." The Dauntless shuddered slightly as the massive weapon discharged. A streak of light shot across space. When it struck the asteroid, twice the size of the one the aliens had vaporized, the effect was different but equally impressive. Instead of vaporizing it completely, the projectile punched straight through the massive rock, causing it to split perfectly in two halves that slowly drifted apart. The bridge crew cheered at their successful demonstration. Mason opened the communication channel again. "We may be new to the galactic community, but we're quick learners. Now, shall we start our conversation again, as equals?" The alien ships remained silent for several long moments. Then the response came, "Human vessels, your behavior is irregular. We will send representatives to discuss your unusual status. Prepare to receive visitors." Mason smiled at his crew. "And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how humanity makes a first impression. Prepare the conference room and alert the xenobiologist. Team, let's show our new friends that humans know how to be hospitable, even when we don't follow the rules." The aliens called themselves the Hegemony. Their largest ship was commanded by Supreme Executor Vorax, a tall being with pale blue skin and 6 fingers on each hand. He paced the command deck of his vessel, the glory of ages, his long robes swishing with each angry step. 30,000 years, he hissed to his officers. For 30,000 years, every new species has followed proper protocols upon first contact. Yet these humans laugh at our authority. His second-in-command, Sub-Executor Krell, stood nervously nearby. "Perhaps they do not understand the honor being offered to them, Supreme Executor." Or perhaps they understand too well, Vorax replied. Prepare a full tactical analysis of their vessels. I want to know everything about these humans before they arrive. Aboard the UES Dauntless, Lieutenant Commander Eric Daniels watched his tactical displays with growing concern. Captain, the hegemony vessels are scanning us extensively. They've also moved into a formation that suggests they're preparing for possible combat. Captain Mason nodded. Keep our shields up, but don't make any aggressive moves. Let's not give them an excuse. Chief Engineer Samantha Kelly's voice came through the comm system. Captain, I've completed my initial analysis of their technology. It's fascinating. Their energy production capabilities are incredible. They're using some form of matter-antimatter reaction we haven't mastered yet. But their propulsion systems are less efficient than ours, and their weapons, while powerful, use far more energy than should be necessary. Interesting, Mason replied. What's your assessment? I think they've had a very different development path than humans, Kelly said. They've had time to perfect certain technologies but haven't needed to optimize others. If I had to guess, I'd say they haven't faced serious challenges in a very long time. Science Officer Lisa Green added, their communication patterns suggest a highly hierarchical society. The smaller ships don't act without explicit orders from the largest vessel. Mason considered this information. So we're dealing with an ancient, powerful civilization that's used to being obeyed and might be a bit inflexible. That sums it up, sir, Green agreed. The tension between the ships continued to build. Then, without warning, the largest hegemony vessel fired another energy beam. This time it struck a small moon orbiting a gas giant at the edge of the system. The resulting explosion shattered the moon into thousands of pieces. That was a civilian mining outpost. Vorax's voice came through the communication channel. Had any of our people been present, millions would have died. This is the power you face, humans. Your demonstration was impressive for a young species, but do not mistake skill for power. The bridge crew of the Dauntless fell silent. The casual destruction of an entire moon was beyond anything humans could achieve. Captain Mason's face hardened. Record this, he said to Communications Officer Crawford. Then he stood, straightened his uniform, and spoke clearly. Supreme Executor, destroying your own property to intimidate us is your choice. But know this, humans have spent most of our history preparing for threats. We've fought each other for thousands of years before we found unity. War isn't new to us, it's in our blood. Mason nodded to Daniels. Now, let me show you something interesting. On the tactical officer's command, the UES Vigilant and UES Relentless began to move. They positioned themselves on opposite sides of a small asteroid about 15 kilometers across. Initiate tandem strike protocol, Mason ordered. Both escort vessels fired their weapons simultaneously. The beams were less powerful than the hegemony's weapons, but they struck with perfect precision. Instead of destroying the asteroid, they cut through it in a complex pattern. When they finished, the asteroid had been carved into the shape of a human hand making a defiant gesture, the middle finger extended. The bridge crew burst into cheers and laughter. The carved asteroid slowly rotated, displaying the rude gesture to the hegemony fleet. You may have more raw power, Mason said to the shocked aliens, but we have precision, coordination, and most importantly, a sense of humor. You're not the first to underestimate humans, and you won't be the last. The response from the hegemony took longer this time. When it came, Vorax's voice sounded different. Perhaps a hint of curiosity had replaced some of the arrogance. Your demonstration is noted, Captain Mason. Perhaps there is more to your species than we initially assessed. We will send a diplomatic delegation to your vessel in 6 hours. Prepare accordingly. When the communication ended, Mason turned to his senior officers. Well, that bought us some time. Now let's make sure we're ready to receive our guests. You think they'll really negotiate, sir? Asked Lieutenant Amanda Foster. I think they're curious now, Mason replied, and curiosity is a starting point. Lieutenant Wilson, I want full security protocols in place, but make sure our visitors are treated with respect. Dr. Watson, prepare your xenobiology team. We need to understand these beings better. Yes, sir, they responded in unison. 6 hours later, a small shuttle departed from the Glory of Ages and approached the Dauntless. Captain Mason, along with a small reception committee, waited in the main shuttle bay. The shuttle was beautiful, its hull adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and move in the light. It landed gracefully, and after a few moments, a hatch opened. The first alien to emerge was clearly not Vorax. This being was smaller, with silvery skin and large angular eyes that took in everything at once. Behind came 4 larger aliens that were obviously security, their posture and equipment making their role clear despite their alien appearance. "Greetings, humans," the silver-skinned alien said, the translation coming through the Dauntless's communication systems. "I am High Ambassador Zalara of the Galactic Hegemony. I have been authorized to assess your species for proper categorization." Mason stepped forward and gave a respectful bow. "Welcome aboard the UES Dauntless, Ambassador." "Zalara, I am Captain John Mason, representing the United Earth Defense Fleet and, by extension, humanity." Zalara studied Mason with those large eyes. "Your vessel is surprisingly advanced for a species we have no record of. How long has your kind traveled between stars?" "This is our first deep space mission," Mason replied honestly. "The Dauntless was launched 3 weeks ago." The ambassador's eyes widened even further. "Impossible. Your technology suggests at least a Category 3 civilization. You cannot possibly have achieved this level of advancement so quickly." Mason smiled. "Perhaps you'll find that humans are full of surprises, Ambassador. We've only had spaceflight capability for about 200 years. Before that, we were limited to our home planet." The hegemony security guards shifted uncomfortably, their hands moving closer to what Mason assumed were weapons. 200 years? Zalara repeated, her voice betraying her shock. From planetary to interstellar travel in 2 centuries? The average species takes at least 2,000 years to make such progress. "We're quick learners," Mason said with a hint of pride. "Now shall we move to more comfortable surroundings? We've prepared a conference room where we can discuss matters more thoroughly." As they walked through the corridors of the Dauntless, Zalara observed the human crew with increasing fascination. The security guards, meanwhile, seemed increasingly nervous around the humans, whose movements they found unpredictable and alarmingly quick. Mason couldn't help but smile to himself. The first contact had been tense, even dangerous, but now humanity had the aliens' attention. The real challenge was just beginning, convincing the ancient hegemony that this young, upstart species deserved respect rather than subjugation. In the conference room, with stars streaming past the viewports, humans and aliens sat across from each other, neither fully understanding the other but both realizing that the galaxy had just become a more complicated place. In the conference room of the UES Dauntless, the meeting between humans and the hegemony delegation had been going on for nearly 3 hours. The walls displayed star charts and information about Earth and its colonies. Communications Officer Paul Crawford had worked quickly to establish a better translation system, allowing for more natural conversation. "So your species has over 300 member races?" Captain Mason asked, leaning forward in his chair. The idea of so many different alien civilizations working together fascinated him. Ambassador Zalara nodded, a gesture she had apparently learned was important to humans. "The galactic hegemony spans more than 40,000 star systems. We have maintained peace and order for 30 millennia." "Impressive," Mason said sincerely. "And this tier system you mentioned, how does that work exactly?" Zalara's silver skin reflected the room's lights as she explained. "All species are categorized based on several factors: age of spaceflight capability, technological advancement, military strength, and cultural stability. The founding species are Tier 1, with each subsequent category having specific roles and responsibilities." Dr. Nicole Watson, the ship's xenobiologist, had been quietly taking notes. Now she spoke up. "And where would humans fall in this system?" The ambassador hesitated before answering. "Based on our initial assessments and your own statements about your development timeline, you would be classified as a Tier 7 civilization." The human officers exchanged glances. And what does Tier 7 status entail? Mason asked carefully. Tier 7 species are under the protection and guidance of higher-tier civilizations, Zalara explained. They provide labor and resources in exchange for security and technological sharing. It is a beneficial arrangement for young races. Security? Chief Alan Rodriguez frowned. Sounds like you're describing servants, not allies. Zalara's large eyes blinked rapidly. Not servants. Protected species. The galaxy is dangerous, filled with threats you cannot imagine. The hegemony provides structure and safety. Mason kept his expression neutral, but his mind was racing. And if we were to decline this generous offer of protection? The ambassador's silver skin darkened slightly. No species has ever declined. It would be unprecedented. We humans specialize in unprecedented actions. Mason replied with a smile. That didn't reach his eyes. As the discussion continued, Rodriguez noticed something concerning. The hegemony security guards seemed increasingly uncomfortable around the humans. They flinched whenever a human moved quickly and kept their hands near their weapons. Captain, Rodriguez whispered when he had a chance to approach Mason. Those guards are nervous. Too nervous. They're acting like they expect us to attack at any moment. Mason nodded slightly. I've noticed. Keep an eye on them, but don't do anything to increase their anxiety. Meanwhile, Dr. Watson was having a fascinating conversation with one of the hegemony's scientific advisors, a being named Trell with 4 arms and a triangular head. Your biological processes are remarkably accelerated, Trell was saying, examining data about human physiology. Your metabolic rate, neural transmission speed, and reaction times are all significantly faster than most spacefaring species. Is that unusual? Watson asked. Most species evolve toward efficiency and longevity, Trell explained. Your kind seems optimized for quick responses and adaptability instead. How long do humans typically live? Average lifespan is about 110 years now, Watson replied. Trell made a sound that the translator didn't catch. We Lantari typically live 800 to 900 years. The founding species often reach 2,000 or more. Watson was stunned. That explains a lot about your civilization's patience and long-term planning. Across the room, Chief Engineer Samantha Kelly was engaged in a technical discussion with the hegemony's engineering representative. They were comparing notes on propulsion systems. Your focus on efficiency is remarkable, the alien engineer said. Our ships generate far more power, but yours use what they have much more effectively. Kelly smiled. When you don't have unlimited resources, you learn to make the most of what you have. Necessity drives innovation. An interesting philosophy, the alien replied. In the hegemony, stability is valued over innovation. Changes are implemented slowly, after careful consideration of all possible outcomes. As these conversations continued, Captain Mason and Ambassador Zalara moved to the topic of Earth's history. Your database indicates your planet has experienced thousands of wars? Zalara asked, sounding disturbed. Unfortunately, yes, Mason admitted. Until about 50 years ago, humans fought each other constantly. Different nations, different beliefs, competition for resources. We found endless reasons to fight. Most species experience a period of conflict before achieving unity, Zalara said. But typically this phase lasts a few centuries at most. Your records indicate continuous warfare for thousands of years. Mason nodded. We're not proud of all our history, but it shaped us. Every time we developed a new weapon, we also developed a countermeasure. Every time we faced a new threat, we adapted to overcome it. And you built your first interstellar ship as a warship, Zalara observed, gesturing around them. The Dauntless is clearly designed for combat, not exploration. It's designed for both, Mason corrected her. We hoped for peaceful contact, but we prepared for the alternative. It seems that was a wise precaution. The ambassador's eyes narrowed. Are you implying the hegemony is a threat to your species? Any unknown is potentially a threat, Mason replied calmly. That's how we think. We prepare for the worst while hoping for the best. After several more hours of discussions, the hegemony delegation prepared to return to their vessel. As they stood to leave, Ambassador Zalara made an announcement. Captain Mason, Supreme Executor Vorax wishes to continue these discussions. He requests your presence aboard the Glory of Ages tomorrow. You may bring 3 representatives from your vessel. Mason considered the request. Going aboard the alien flagship could be dangerous, but refusing might be seen as an insult or a sign of fear. I would be honored, he replied. Please tell the Supreme Executor we accept his invitation. After the aliens had departed, Mason called his senior officers together for a meeting. Impressions? He asked, looking around the table. They're ancient and powerful, Science Officer Green said, but rigid in their thinking. They keep trying to fit us into their existing categories. Those guards were terrified of us, Rodriguez added. Not our weapons. Us. Something about humans makes them deeply uncomfortable. Dr. Watson nodded in agreement. According to their scientist, we move and think faster than they do. Our biology is accelerated compared to most species they know. And they expect us to just accept being classified as a servant race, Lieutenant Foster said, her voice tight with anger. Their Tier 7 status would make us little more than workers for the higher tiers. Mason took all this in with a thoughtful expression. So we're facing an ancient galactic empire that expects complete obedience, sees us as unusually aggressive and unpredictable, and wants to classify us at the bottom of their hierarchy. That about sums it up, sir, Kelly confirmed. Mason's serious expression slowly transformed into a smile. Then I think it's time we show them exactly how unpredictable humans can be. Lieutenant Commander Daniels, I want a full tactical analysis of their flagship. Dr. Watson, learn everything you can about their biology. And Chief Kelly, I have a special project for you. As his officers left to carry out their tasks, Mason turned to look out at the stars. Tomorrow's meeting would be critical. Somehow he needed to convince these ancient aliens that humanity deserved respect, not subjugation. And he needed to do it without starting an interstellar war that Earth couldn't possibly win. But as he considered the challenge ahead, Mason felt a familiar sensation, the rush of adrenaline that came with facing impossible odds. If there was one thing humans excelled at, it was defying expectations. The shuttle carrying Captain Mason and his chosen team approached the Glory of Ages. The massive hegemony flagship seemed even larger up close. Its hull was covered in intricate designs that glowed with soft blue light. Next to it, the human shuttle looked plain and practical. Remember the plan? Mason said quietly to his team. He had selected Science Officer Lisa Green, Security Chief Alan Rodriguez, and Dr. Nicole Watson to accompany him. Observe everything. Stay alert, but remain diplomatic. Rodriguez checked his sidearm one last time before securing it in its holster. Standard diplomatic protocol allowed for security personnel to be armed. I still don't like this, Captain. We're putting ourselves at their mercy. Sometimes the bold move is the right one, Mason replied. They need to see that humans aren't afraid. The shuttle docked with the alien vessel. As the airlock cycled, Dr. Watson adjusted the small device on her belt, a modified translator that would record and analyze everything they encountered. When the doors opened, they were greeted by 6 hegemony guards and Ambassador Zalara. The guards stood perfectly still, their posture rigid and formal. Welcome aboard the Glory of Ages, Zalara said, her silver skin reflecting the blue lights of the corridor. Supreme Executor Vorax awaits you in the Grand Chamber. As they walked through the ship, the humans couldn't help but stare. The interior was as ornate as the exterior, with vaulted ceilings and walls adorned with what appeared to be the history of the hegemony in elaborate murals. Your ship is beautiful, Mason commented. The Glory of Ages has been the flagship of the hegemony for 5,000 years, Zalara replied with evident pride. It has been continuously upgraded and enhanced with each new technological advancement. 5,000 years? Green whispered to Watson. Our oldest ships barely last 30 before they're decommissioned. They passed numerous aliens of different species, all of whom stopped and stared at the humans with expressions ranging from curiosity to obvious fear. Mason noted that most moved with a deliberate slowness compared to humans. Finally, they reached a massive door decorated with symbols from hundreds of different worlds. It slid open silently to reveal the grand chamber. The room was enormous, with a ceiling that seemed to display the galaxy itself, stars swirling slowly above them. At the far end sat Supreme Executor Vorax on an elevated platform. He was larger than most of his kind, his blue skin darker, and his eyes sharp with intelligence. "The human delegation approaches," announced a voice from somewhere above. Mason and his team walked forward, conscious of the many eyes watching them. Representatives from at least a dozen alien species lined the sides of the chamber, all dressed in elaborate clothing that seemed to indicate their status. When they reached the center of the room, Mason gave a respectful bow. "Supreme Executor, thank you for your invitation. I am Captain John Mason of Earth, and these are my officers." Vorax studied them for a long moment before speaking. "Captain Mason, your species continues to surprise us. Our historical records show that when a new civilization is discovered, they typically react with either fear or reverence. You have displayed neither. Humans tend to reserve judgment until we have more information," Mason replied diplomatically. "Indeed," Vorax gestured, and a three-dimensional display appeared in the air between them. It showed Earth and its solar system. "Your homeworld is isolated, far from the established trade routes and core systems of the hegemony. Perhaps this explains your unusual development." "How so?" Mason asked. "Most species evolve under the distant guidance of the hegemony," Vorax explained. "Even before formal contact, we monitor developing civilizations, occasionally providing subtle assistance or intervention to prevent self-destruction. Earth was unknown to us until now. You developed entirely independently." This revelation sent a ripple of whispers through the watching aliens. Mason exchanged glances with his team. "That explains a few things," Green murmured. Vorax continued. "We have reviewed the information you shared about your species. Your rapid advancement from primitive technology to interstellar travel is unprecedented. No other known species has achieved this in less than a millennium. You did it in mere centuries. We're motivated learners," Mason said with a slight smile. "You are dangerous," came a new voice. A tall, thin alien with gray skin stepped forward from the sidelines. "Supreme Executor, I must speak. These humans represent a potential threat to hegemony stability." "High Counselor Drez," Vorax acknowledged. "You may present your concerns." The gray alien pointed at the humans. "Look at their history. Constant warfare, rapid technological advancement driven by conflict, biological optimization for speed rather than longevity. These are the classic markers of a destroyer species." Rodriguez tensed, his hand automatically moving closer to his weapon. Mason gave him a warning glance. "With respect, Counselor," Mason said calmly. "Humanity has moved beyond its warlike past. We united our planet before reaching for the stars." "Did you?" Drez challenged. "Your own database indicates your world maintains multiple competing governments and military forces. You built warships as your first interstellar vessels. Even now, your security officer reaches for his weapon at the first sign of disagreement." Rodriguez consciously relaxed his posture, but the damage was done. Vorax raised a hand for silence. "The concerns of High Counselor Drez are not without merit, Captain Mason. Your species shows troubling patterns. This is why the tier system exists, to integrate new species gradually, allowing them to learn our ways before granting them full autonomy." "And if we prefer our autonomy now?" Mason asked. Before Vorax could answer, alarms suddenly blared throughout the chamber. The display showing Earth vanished, replaced by a tactical view of the Tau Ceti system. "Supreme Executor," called a hegemony officer who rushed into the room. "3 new vessels have entered the system. They are of human design." Mason's heart sank. This wasn't part of the plan. He had specifically requested that Earth send no additional ships until negotiations were complete. The display showed 3 ships that Mason immediately recognized, advanced destroyers from Earth's Northern Alliance. They were moving directly toward the hegemony fleet with weapons powered. "Captain Mason," Vorax's voice had gone cold. You claim to come in peace, yet your people send warships. Those ships are not under my authority, Mason explained quickly. Earth has multiple autonomous governments, as the counselor pointed out. I represent the United Earth Defense Fleet, but these ships belong to the Northern Alliance. They may have detected our change of course and come to investigate. Convenient, sneered Drez. More likely this was your plan all along, to distract us with talks while your reinforcements arrived. The situation was deteriorating rapidly. Mason needed to regain control. Supreme Executor, allow me to contact those ships. I can explain the situation and prevent any misunderstanding. Vorax studied him for a long moment. Very well, Captain. You may use our communication array. But know this. If those ships take any aggressive action, we will respond with full force. The hegemony has faced threats before. None have survived. As Mason moved to the communication station, he caught Rodriguez's eye. The security chief gave a nearly imperceptible nod. They both knew this situation had just become much more complicated. The arrival of the Northern Alliance ships had changed everything. What had been a tense but promising diplomatic mission was now balanced on a knife's edge. One wrong move could spark a conflict that humanity couldn't hope to win. Mason had to find a way to prevent a war while still maintaining humanity's dignity and independence. As he prepared to contact the approaching ships, he realized that the real test of his skills as a captain was just beginning. Captain Mason stood at the communication array on the Glory of Ages, aware that every alien in the Grand Chamber was watching him. The fate of humanity might depend on what happened in the next few minutes. This is Captain John Mason of the UES Dauntless to Northern Alliance vessels. Identify yourselves and state your purpose immediately, he said, keeping his voice calm but authoritative. After a brief pause, a response came through. The display showed a woman with short blonde hair and the insignia of a Commodore. Captain Mason, this is Commodore Laura Hayes of the NAS Intrepid. We detected your course change and loss of regular communication. The Alliance Council sent us to investigate and ensure your safety. Mason nodded, relieved it wasn't worse. I appreciate your concern, Commodore, but we are in the middle of diplomatic negotiations with the Galactic Hegemony. Your arrival with powered weapons could be misinterpreted. I need you to power down your offensive systems and maintain your current position. Hayes frowned. With all due respect, Captain, we're receiving some concerning readings from the alien vessels. Their energy signatures suggest weapon systems far beyond anything we've encountered. The Alliance isn't comfortable with you being aboard their flagship without proper protection. Supreme Executor Vorax stepped forward. Your subordinates show wisdom, Captain Mason. They recognize a superior force and seek to protect their own. Yet they still approach with weapons ready. This behavior confirms our assessment of your species. Mason felt the situation slipping away. He needed to take control. Commodore Hayes, stand down immediately. That's a direct order, Mason said firmly. Supreme Executor, I apologize for this misunderstanding. Earth has multiple defense forces, and coordination isn't always perfect. I assure you the Northern Alliance means no harm. As Mason spoke, Dr. Watson moved closer to him and whispered, Captain, I've been analyzing their biological responses. The Supreme Executor's skin coloration indicates stress but not anger. I think he's more curious than threatened. Mason gave a slight nod of understanding. Meanwhile, Science Officer Green had been studying the tactical display. Captain, she said quietly, those aren't just Northern Alliance ships. Look at their formation and energy signatures. They're running Protocol Thermopylae. Mason's eyes widened slightly. Protocol Thermopylae was a special defensive formation developed for situations where Earth ships were vastly outgunned. It was named after an ancient battle where a small force had held off a much larger one using superior positioning. On the communication screen, Commodore Hayes was speaking again. Captain Mason, we've been instructed to inform you that Earth Defense Command has activated the Sentinel network. The message reads, "The stars have eyes." This coded message confirmed what Green had spotted. The 3 visible ships were just the tip of the spear. Dozens, perhaps hundreds of stealth platforms would now be moving into position throughout the Tau Ceti system, carrying Earth's most powerful weapons. Mason turned to Vorax. Supreme Executor, I think it's time for complete honesty between us. May I speak freely? Vorax studied him for a moment, then nodded. Proceed, Captain. When humans venture into unknown territory, we take precautions, Mason explained. The ships you see are part of a larger defensive network that has now been activated. We call it the Sentinel Network, automated platforms carrying our most powerful weapons designed to remain invisible until needed. Murmurs spread through the alien delegates. High Counselor Drez stepped forward, his gray face showing alarm. This is exactly what I warned about. They have hidden weapons throughout our system. Not weapons, insurance, Mason corrected. Think of it as a failsafe to ensure diplomatic talks remain diplomatic. Vorax's expression was unreadable. You claim to want peace while surrounding us with hidden weapons. This is the behavior of a species that expects conflict. We don't expect conflict, Mason replied. We prepare for it. There's a difference. He gestured to the communication array. With your permission, I'd like to make one more call. After Vorax nodded, Mason contacted the Dauntless. Lieutenant Commander Daniels, execute Revelation Protocol. On the tactical display, dozens of small signatures suddenly appeared throughout the system. The stealth platforms were revealing themselves, not all of them, Mason knew, but enough to make the point. The alien delegates gasped. Even Vorax seemed shocked. These platforms could have remained hidden, Mason explained. Instead, I'm choosing to reveal them as a show of good faith. We came prepared for conflict but hoping for friendship. An unusual method of seeking friendship, Vorax observed. Perhaps, Mason agreed. But effective. Now we can speak as equals, knowing that while neither of us could win a conflict, both of us could lose. That seems like a good foundation for honest negotiation. For the first time, something like respect showed in Vorax's eyes. You are indeed unlike any species we have encountered, Captain Mason. Your tactics are unexpected. Humans specialize in the unexpected, Mason replied, with a small smile. It's kept us alive through our troubled history. Vorax turned and conferred quietly with several advisors. The tension in the room was thick as the humans waited. Finally, the Supreme Executor turned back to them. Captain Mason, the hegemony, has existed for 30,000 years. In that time, we have encountered many species, but none quite like yours. Your development occurred outside our influence. Your advancement was driven by conflict rather than guidance, and your approach to diplomacy includes both words and veiled threats. Mason remained silent, waiting. Under normal circumstances, such a species would be deemed too dangerous for anything but the strictest control, Vorax continued. However, these are not normal circumstances. He gestured, and the display changed, to show a different part of the galaxy, a vast empty region with a strange darkness spreading at its edge. For the past century, something has been approaching from beyond the galaxy's rim, Vorax explained. We call it the Void. It has consumed 3 outer systems already. Our weapons seem ineffective against it. Our strategies, developed over millennia of peace, have failed. Mason exchanged glances with his team. This was unexpected. Every species that has joined the hegemony did so seeking safety and stability, Vorax said. They followed our guidance, adopted our ways, and in doing so, perhaps, lost something of themselves. The same qualities that make humans dangerous, your unpredictability, your warrior instincts, your rapid adaptation, might be exactly what is needed against this new threat. He stepped closer to Mason. I propose something unprecedented, an alliance between the hegemony and humanity, not as masters and servants, but as partners. You would retain your independence while gaining access to our technology. In return, we would benefit from your unique perspective. Mason couldn't hide his surprise. That's quite a change from your initial demand for submission. The hegemony has survived for 30 millennia by recognizing when adaptation is necessary, Vorax replied. Perhaps it is time for us to learn from you, just as you can learn from us. As Mason considered this unexpected offer, he realized that humanity had achieved something remarkable. Through defiance and preparedness, they had earned the respect of a civilization thousands of years their senior. "I believe we can work together," Mason said, extending his hand in the human gesture of agreement. After a moment's hesitation, Vorax extended his six-fingered hand and clasped Mason's. "Then let this mark the beginning of a new chapter for both our peoples." As they shook hands, Mason couldn't help but smile. Humans had entered the galactic stage not with a bow, but with a laugh of defiance, and in doing so, had changed the course of galactic history forever.